Welcome to DialMForFilms. It is not possible to talk about television in India without talking about Sameer Nair. Sameer went through the gamut, wanting to be an astronaut, studying hotel management. I believe there was a 6-month stint straight out of the hotel management course to set up a tiffin delivery service that was very quickly abandoned. He spent 2 years working in sales at Yellow Pages before joining the advertising agency Goldwire Communications. This was his first step in the world of storytelling that became his calling for the years to come. He joined Star India in August 1994. 5 years later, he became the programming head of the network. And a year after that, Kaun Banega Crorepati launched. The first episode of the show went on air on 3rd July 2000. And in just a few months post-launch, the market was shaken. In the last 3 decades, things have drastically changed, but Sameer has endured. He's currently the CEO of Applause Entertainment. Fresh off the staggering success of his show Scam 1992, the series is now a franchise, everyone. We will get a scam a season. Season 2 of the show is tentatively titled Scam 2003, The Curious Case of Abdul Karim Telgi. Sameer has had a very hectic schedule during the pandemic, and he's just come up for a breather to be on DialMForFilms to talk about his journey. Welcome to DialMForFilms, Sameer, and thank you for making the time.
Thank you so much for having me, Smriti. I am excited to be here. I mean, I've heard so much about you and the interviews you do, and I'm happy to be part of this session, which I hope will be useful.
Sameer, it's mystifying that I haven't met you. I just want to tell you that when I joined NDTV, you were my super boss because I used to work on Good Morning India, and we heard nothing but tales and tales and tales about you. So I am really excited and very honored to have you on the show and have you tell your story here, right here on DialMForFilms with us. I want to dial back a little bit. Sameer, your childhood friend Sunita Rajan opened the window of opportunity for you at Star.
Right.
You had your own ad film company when the offer came in.
Right.
Firstly, what made you join Star? And though we don't have the original note that you made as a run-up to that, sort of chat with Sunita, but in 1993, we've created a graphic version of this. You'd made a note at that point of time that had these two things. And I must say, this is very prophetic.
Right.
Because, you didn't know KBC was going to happen. You didn't know T20 is coming, but these two lines were written by you.
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about what this note is based on and why you decided to take that giant shift?
Well, actually, you know what? I was in Goldwire, and Goldwire, is a wonderful advertising agency. I learned everything from Aubrey Sequeira, and he taught me creative, he taught me filmmaking. We used to do a lot of MRF commercials, documentaries, corporate videos, all of that stuff. And at that time, interestingly enough, Aubrey had this idea of wanting to start a 24-hour Hindi entertainment channel, and we called it GTV, right, for Goldwire. And in fact, we put a full plan together and all of that. And in fact, even went to Hong Kong in 91, 92 to pitch it to the then Star TV, as an idea that, this is the channel. So I'd spent some time in doing, trying to create a programming calendar and all of that at that time. I had done a lot of work, apart from making commercials. Goldwire used to also acquire a lot of content, which we used to put onto Doordarshan at the time. So, I mean, I am familiar with the TV business, and I have watched so much TV all my life. So, I mean, it was obviously the medium that was coming up. Doordarshan was there, and now satellite TV had launched. So, in the early 90s after the Gulf War, satellite TV had arrived, Star TV had come. So, I mean, there was that excitement. So the GTV experience was actually quite interesting because we made a whole pitch deck and we went to Hong Kong, two of us, sort of him, little older, me, younger, interloper. I was, I think, at the time about 26 or 27. And we went and made a pitch. But of course, we had no money, in that sense. I mean, it was just a small agency. A year or two later, when ZTV launched, I was always amused at the sort of, the coincidence and the sort of that real 6 degrees of separation. So then after I left Goldwire and set up, I did what everyone always does, which is that you work in an agency for some time and then you want to strike out on your own. So you become an independent ad filmmaker. And I did some pretty good work. I did a commercial for Fun School. I did another video for MRF. I shot the Sri Perambudur races with a Belgian crew, a 14 camera shoot and all that. So I was having a good time. I was in Chennai. I was happy. I was in my comfort zone, all of that. when my childhood friend Sunita called up and she said that, hey, listen, Star TV, you've all heard about it. It's all there, but now they're going to come to India. They're going to be serious. And I think you should make this jump. You should get into television. That's the next big thing. So I said, okay. So what I did was I actually sent her my CV and I was hopeful of getting a job in Star Sports.
Yes.
I thought if I get a job in Star Sports and if I can become a promo producer, I'd be really happy. I'd done a lot of sport footage and editing. So, I mean, that was the thing. Or then I thought Star Plus, which is when I made all these notes because I thought, no, might as well get prepared in case I get a call. But what I did get was a call from Tony Watts from Star Movies.
Yes.
And the channel had not launched at the time. So there was no reference to it. So when I met him in, I think, June of 94, there was no reference. He just told me that we're going to launch this English movie channel. It's going to be the first paid TV channel in the country. And Star Plus and all the others were not. And that, you got to make interstitial programming. So I was not clear what interstitial programming was. So he said, well, basically it's got to be interviews of actors and behind the scenes and all of that stuff. My first thought was, oh, good Lord, Bajaj ki le rahe hain. But then, it was, it was all nice and fancy. And then he described to me everything else that he did and everything that Tony Watts did. I mean, he was a really big figure in the media business and globally and go to the festivals and all of that. So I sort of took the punt and did it. So that was that. Then I accepted the job and then I came to, all I told him was that, listen, I've done a lot of work at Goldwire, so I'm not exactly a researcher writer. So he said, okay, what do you want to be called? I said, I should at least be executive producer. So he said, okay. So then that was that.
Sameer, I want to understand these. I know we know about KBC, we know about all the bands that were created, we know about the Delhi soaps, but I want to understand this time that you joined Star. Star actually had launched in India in 1990. It was 2 years before Zee and 5 years before Sony, but it struggled for 9 years before you turned it around. Both Zee and Sony became market leaders. They left Star behind. Apart from not being able to do programming in Hindi because of the agreement with Zee Telefilms, what do you think were the challenges?
I think that was the main challenge. I mean, in all honesty, it's not like when we came along, we did anything magical or, something that, should have been done before, but wasn't. The reality was that the 50-50 arrangement that required you to do 50-50 Hindi, English in prime time and 24 hours is, it's like getting into a boxing match with, one hand tied behind your back in any case and having injured your other hand. So, I mean, there's not much hope in that game. So it was tough. So it was obviously never going to happen. And we were always making we were quite sporting about it. And everyone, I mean, even the management before that, Mr. Basu's management, we did a lot of things. I used to buy movies in that period. And I used to buy all the Hindi movies. And I broke there used to be a 5-year window. We broke that in 99 by buying movies. Satya, we put on air within 6 weeks. Gulam we put on air within 5 weeks, So we did all those things. But even then, all of those actions, I mean, there was Saans, there was Kora Kagas, there were shows, right, on this thing. There was Rendezvous with Simi Garewal. There used to be programming.
But even our bestsellers, I think you guys gave a lot of...
Our bestsellers came later. But in that period before, there was also Tutu Meme, there was Chandrakanta. So we had done things like that. But it was always, that one Hindi, one English, one Hindi, one English, and which is never going to work out. So I guess in 99, when after Mr. Basu's management had left, Peter and me and the rest of us were all there, that's when the split with Zee happened. And that time the decision was made that, okay, let's go 100% Hindi. So I think that going 100% Hindi was the big thing. It was not any great thing that we did as much as having the freedom to do that. Because otherwise we could have continued for another 5 years and continued to do smart things. Like actually all through 99 till the middle of 2000, we did bestsellers. We did so many. Even we did good shows. I did a show called Dar. We did something called Meh. We did Rajdhani. We did Life Nahi Hai, Laddu. We did so many things. But they were always in that 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 kind of rating. And Zee and Sony were at 11, 12, 11, 12, that kind. So it obviously needed a complete overhaul. And I guess that's what we ended up doing then.
Sameer, but what was happening in your life was that you didn't know that this big shakeup is going to happen, right? You were quite spent doing what you were doing. You were tapped out. You'd done the premieres. You'd done the the in-depth interviews, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you actually worked on a film. You worked on a film idea and you were going to pitch it to Amitabh Bachchan. And you asked for a meeting. And this is very dramatic, but you asked for a meeting which was set up for Friday, 11 o'clock. And Thursday, the shakeup happened and you became the programming head of Star Network. And
Right.
you canceled that meeting.
Well, I didn't cancel it. I had to cancel it because I was a bit startled on the Friday when I got a call saying that, have you reached? And I said, I'm in the office. And this friend of mine, Sunil Doshi, he said that we have a meeting with AB. And I said, oh shit, Sunil, I got promoted last night. I'm the new programming head of Star Plus, man. I can't come for the meeting. So
I can't go anywhere.
that was a close shave. And yes, at that time, more than spent or tapped out, it was something that I'd been wanting to do. I am at heart, I'm a storyteller. And I have, from Goldwire, my background has been, creating production, rolling up sleeves and getting things done. The entire period in Star was really exciting. We had done a lot of stuff. But, as long as that 50-50 thing existed, as long as the management existed, I mean, it's a very crowded place. There's a lot of traffic at the time. And my sense at that time was that, maybe I should, make the break. I should, get on to, pursuing my movie dream and actually setting up a studio. It was not so much about, just being a movie director or something. I genuinely wanted to, set up something, more like a collaborative, creative sort of ecosystem.
You
And
wanted
I'm
to follow
hugely inspired by, Steven Spielberg. He's a big, I'm a big fan. So I thought that I should do something like that, set up something like Amblin. But then, of course, that didn't happen. As you said, I got promoted, and then the next day I got really busy, and then I was busy for a long time after
for a
that.
very long time. But you did go to Mr. Bachchan a year later.
A year later. A year later, when I went to meet him for KBC, so I had gone to meet him for KBC, and of course, he's got a fantastic memory. So, I mean, the first thing that he told me was that, weren't you supposed to see me last year with some movie script? So I said, yes, sir, I was, but now here I am, and why don't I tell you about this instead? So,
But the thing is, what I want to know is that walk us through the creative war room that led to KBC, which became a TV phenomena, and daily soaps that were not even a part of the storytelling lexicon till then. Now we throw the word around as if because it's been created. But at that point of time, the concept didn't exist.
well, let me answer your second question first. So let's do daily soaps first. So the reality is that daily soaps always existed. And in fact, at the time, there used to be a very popular show on Sony called Ek Mahal Ho Sapno Ka, which used to come at 11 o'clock, right, at that time. And or 11:10 or something like that. And besides, before that, daily soaps have always been there on television in the afternoons.
Yeah.
So it was a common phenomenon. And in fact, in South India, Sun TV used to put daily soaps from early evening till prime. So they used to do it like from 5 to 8, and they were anyway doing that. What we did uniquely, first of all, on the daily soap and on the programming idea, was that we put it into prime time. And we proceeded to program daily soaps into prime time. So that was new and unique, and for the first time, because it hadn't been done, as a strategy. With regard to how we got started, was really, I've met Ekta Kapoor once before. She had been doing a really successful show on Z called Hum Panch. And she had come and met me and told me about this really successful show she did on Sun TV called Kudumbam. And she said, that this is really successful and I want to do that. I don't want to do comedy. I want to be taken seriously. But before, when we had met, we were still that half Hindi, half English. We were trying to be very urban, so we didn't have really a play. We used to try and do cool stuff at that time. So when I met her again in April, and that time we were actually preparing for KBC, and all of those preparations were going on. So at that time, when I met her and her father, he narrated to me. He actually told me the story first that Ekta has this wonderful idea, and aisa hai ki there's this family with all the bahus and everyone, and the eldest son of the eldest bahu gets married, and a new bahu comes into the house, and the name of the show is Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. So I said, like, oh my God, this is real killer. We got to do this, right? So we totally got to do this. So then we said, okay, let's do it. We'll do it as a daily soap. We put it into prime time, 10:30 was the slot we picked. And that's it. Then we forgot about it in a sense. And they had gone off to do their work. Around May or June, I remember, I remember asking my colleagues in Star that, hey, listen, what happened to that show from Ekta, that what happened with that? So they said, like, everyone was like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. So I said, we should find out. So I called her up and I said, what happened? She said, oh, it's getting ready and this and that. We're going to send you something soon. So it was one Sunday, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks before we launched, that when I was going to the office and I came and there was this colleague of mine, Zareen, who was sitting and watching something. So I said, what are you doing here? She said, oh, the tapes from Balaji have arrived. So I said, oh, okay, let's sit and watch this. So then we sat together on that Sunday morning and we watched 4 episodes of Kyunki Saadi Kar. And I said, okay, so now that we watched it, so what's your plan now? What do we do? She said, well, I'll make notes and we'll send feedback and we'll do this and do that and all that. So I said, okay, cool. I went to the KBC set that day, finished all the work. The next morning when I came to the office, I was waiting for the rest of my colleagues, Deepak, Shailaja, Tarun, all of them. And they were all like quite disturbed and perturbed with the thing. And they said, did you see that? So I said, yeah, I saw it. So what do you guys think? And like everyone was sort of silent and ashen-faced in that sense. So they said, so what are we going to do? So I thought long and hard at that time. And I said that, listen, guys, this style of storytelling is not something that we are familiar with, right? Now, I don't want us to screw this up, right? We are all intellectuals here because we were at the time, people are from Jadavpur University and Jamia and FTII and, we're a pretty intellectual bunch. I said, now I don't think we are in a position to give any comment to this. We should not comment on this because that kind of stuff won't work. So you got to go with the gut. Let's just do it, right? So I mean, the response to Ekta and to Balaji was that, okay, good to go. Thank you very much. Please keep delivering tapes. We'll put it on air. So Kyunki Saadi Kabhi went on air without a single channel or platform comment. Right? We all had our views on it, but there was no comment. We said, like, just put it on air because this is, and I was really convinced at the time that this idiom is very different and we shouldn't be meddling with it. We shouldn't be sort of, tinkering with that. Funnily enough, Kyunki went on air the same night as KBC, right? Yes. On the same night. KBC, of course, was a different story. KBC in 99, actually, in July 99, when I had just become programming head, in one of his visits to India, Steve Askew had given me a tape of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And he had said, take a look at this show. And I looked at it. I said, oh my God, I love it. I love quiz. I love all this. But how are we going to do it? Half Hindi, half English. No hope in hell. So it was just in my drawer. So later that year, around November, December, when the split happened and we had to now go full Hindi, one of the questions came up was, so what are we going to do? I said, let's do that. Let's do that. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Let's do it. So, it started from there. And then it sort of very quickly evolved. Who would produce it? Siddharth Basu would produce it. So that got set. Who would be the anchor from the beginning? I know I had only one. I know it's often said that we had a long list and then we selected Amitabh Bachchan. That's not true. There was just the one name always, Mr. Bachchan. And I was really keen on approaching him and talking to him. So this plan was hatched in Delhi between Steve, Siddharth and me. That, I said, I want to speak to Amitabh Bachchan to do this. And they said, okay, if he does it, let's try. So I said, well, let's try. Then I went and met him, and it took a long time to convince him because he was highly undecided about this. Obviously, because it's a big deal, right? Coming from being a superstar, albeit there was at the time the sense was that he's a fading superstar and in decline. But at the end of the day, he is Amitabh Bachchan, and now he's going to come and become a game show host, and he's going to host a program on TV. And it all sounds so terrible, and everyone was against it. So the entire family was against it, and in general, people were sort of quite. I know how much press I've spoken to and journalists at that time, and they used to all be almost critical of me to have even thought of such a blasphemous thing. Like, seriously, what are you doing to us? But after all the sort of oscillations, he sort of came on board. We took him to London. We showed him the shoot happening there. He was very pleased to see all of that. And the one thing that he mentioned to me on the flight back was that you have to get this right. You must not do this wrong. You must get it right. And he said, if you get it right, phad ke rakh denge. So I said, don't worry, sir. We are going to get this right. And we did, actually. The way we produced KBC was, down to the last detail. Siddharth's team was outstanding. And every single production aspect of it, everything that went into it, into the set construction, into the research, into the, this is all for the first time, right? So much research, all that telephony, the call in, dial this number and you have that thing and you do the whole process of entries. Today, what is so commonplace, call for entries. We did the first call for entries, on a nationwide scale. But yeah, I think the team at the time, all of us, everyone at Star, between the sales team, the marketing team, our programming team, The amount of detail that went into it, every single aspect of it, to finally then get to the point. And the first day we shot, the power went off. So the first day of shoot, the Pandit comes and he does all the puja and all that stuff, break the coconut and everything. The minute he completes it and goes to AB for the Aarti, the power is gone. And it's like we don't even have a view on it. We're saying, you're in Film City, and Bombay power never goes like that. So AB later told me, he said, your Pandit seems to be a bit. I said, no, whatever. Then we started shooting the next day. So yeah, I mean, it was quite but we put in a lot of effort into it. I mean, even the simple, that story, which is quite famous and true, is that originally the show was called KBL, Kaun Banega Crorepati. And then we were doing the big review meeting with Rupert, and Rupert asked, what is Lakpati? And we told him, and he was like horrified. And he said, like, that's pathetic. What's the next one? So we said, a crore. And then he said, okay, that's better. So it just went like that, from lakh to crore in like 4-5 seconds. And so, yeah, I mean, those kind of things. In fact, during that period, I've had numerous, near heart fails, because, AB would continually change his mind and say, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. So, by now I've confirmed internally. So, like I'm pretty far down on the plank now. I got no hope. But yeah, I think it all came together eventually.
Listen, when it launched, I mean, then no baj gaye kya, lock kar diya jaye. There was surely cult level hysteria over KBC. When did you realize, Sameer, that you were onto something?
See, I think in a sense we knew what we were doing. We knew this show has been successful all over the world. It has a lot of genuine insight into, there's programming insight in what KBC or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is. It's a set of questions arranged in a particular manner. It gives you a certain degrees of lifelines. It gives you certain, padavs as you go along. There's a lot of money at stake, and it has those 4 options, and it allows a family to participate, right? It allows a family in the house to play along. It also gives you, as a viewer, a sense of intelligence, deep sense of intelligence and achievement, because when you see the question and you know the answer, you say the B. Now you're waiting, the game is being played, finally the answer is B, and you feel fulfilled, at the house. You turn around and look at the rest of your family members and said, see, I was right, kind of thing. So, I mean, all of those things, the way the show plays out, the way the questions, the knowledge, all of that, were all things that had been already proven in 60, 70 countries. So to that extent, it's not like we're buying a flop show or a untried kind of thing. When we got Mr. Bachchan on, there was, of course, that thing that, is he the right person? Should we be getting someone younger or cooler? I remember a colleague even suggested Govinda at the time, but I'm such a big Bachchan fan that I was horrified at the suggestion itself. But when it went on air and when it sort of succeeded, it succeeded straight away. So I think the first week it got to a rating of 10. It was number 1, 2, 3, 4 of programs in the top 50. And then it pretty much stayed there for the next 52 to 75 weeks, like there, and went to a peak of 24 rating. So I think we got a sense of the fact that it's become a big hit in like 2-3 weeks, that it has sort of broken out, because a lot of people, even in the creative community, had told me that, what kind of dumb idea is this quiz show in prime time? You're going to ask question and answers in Hindi and English in prime time is like, got to be stupid, right? But so we knew that it become a success. I think what surprised us was the fact that it kept growing, because obviously most of, all of success, all of history being made, all of those are all things in hindsight.
Yeah.
When you're doing it, you're not really, you're not making history. You're just doing stuff. You're coming to work and you're solving problems and, dealing with things and sort of.
But, just walk us through, how did you run with what you began and how did you hold on to it? For almost 7 years, the other players in the market were playing catch up. It just began, and then after that, it was relentless, but it wasn't relentless, organically. Of course, there were things that you began to do. There were situations that you began to create, because of which you stayed on top of the game. And this was not a period where it was just about making shows and greenlighting great ideas. You were also laying out the pipeline at the time.
True.
Including satellite homes, expanding distribution, literally laying the cables. Make us understand this matrix.
So actually, I think from our scheme of things, I think when KBC went on air, there were about 25 million cable satellite homes. As I told you, when I joined Star in 94, Star Movies was the first pay channel. So we had already started. I mean, I've been working with pay channels from 94 in that sense. Star Movies was never ad supported. So in 2000, when KBC happened and Kyunki happened and both shows succeeded, KBC first and then Kyunki caught up, the first thing we did was that we plugged it with Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki in October. So that there used to be a gap. KBC used to be 9 to 10 and then Kyunki used to come at 10:30. So between 10 to 10:30, we had a string of other shows, which were like, shows that we had done before. And we really liked them, Rajdhani and Life Near Laddu and all of that. But then, they had to be sacrificed. So then we sacrificed them in October. That was actually Tarun Katyal had come to me telling me that, listen, Ekta has got another show called Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki. So I said, oh my God, it sounds good already. Let's do it. So then we put that on air at 10 o'clock. So then it became 9 to 11. That was the block we created first. Then we went on adding to it. Then we did 8 to 10. Then 8 to 9. Then we added after 11, 11:30.
Kahin Kisi Rose.
So we first built all that out all through the year. And all through that year, KBC held strong. KBC held strong through and through. So as long as KBC held strong, we had a Monday to Thursday taped up. And then we used to do movies on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and build out the rest of the programming. So I think that first year, the amount of effort, because oftentimes what happens is that you say that Star did KBC, Kyunki Kahani, and the rest is history. And then Star ruled for 6 years or something like that. But that ruled for 6 years is 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, 6 years or 7 years. So that's like a lot of time. So I think it was really a very energized team. Also, what happens is that when you have a success like KBC, and when you have programming successes, and I see it all the time that people who work in an organization that is successful, the success rubs off on them as well, right? Individual people at any level become smarter, they become more successful, they go back home and they feel better. Like even the youngest office boy in our office would go back home and say ki I work in the company that makes KBC, in that sense. So it becomes a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we worked very hard. I mean, at that time, the content team that I had was outstanding. So whether, Deepak Sehgal, Tarun Katyal, Shailaja Kejriwal, I mean, there were so many people, Abhijit Mitra, promo producers, Karan Singh, operations team. I mean, those are the period when we used to send tapes to Hong Kong for telecast. So we had a parallel airline service going, where tapes used to go every night to Hong Kong. And we had 3 flights booked 365 days a year to deliver these tapes to Hong Kong, because all the materials to come, it's to be late. It was all new, right? Daily soaps in prime time is insane stuff. Who's done all this? We had a flood in between. I mean, there's much drama. So I think in that period, I think the energy of our success was really something that drove us. We had gone from zero to hero, and we were determined to stay there. In the words of Bob Hope, I've been rich and I've been poor, and believe me, rich is better. So, we had spent 6-7 years, just before KBC happened. I remember we had gone for a party, Tarun, Deepak and me. And it was one of those, like a producer throws a party. And the 3 of us had gone there. And none of the other production community people really came and hung with us. Nobody spoke to us. And, we were just standing around in a corner and sipping our drinks. And I remember telling, Tarun and Deepak, I said, what? We got to get to the point where we stand in the same place and everyone comes and says hello to us. And we got to that eventually. I mean, next year we got to that. So that was a bit quick. But so I mean, I think that really energized us,
But the competition, the moment you did this and you guys arrived and you started working on it, the others started struggling to keep up.
Well, the first moves did happen. So, I mean, I think straight off the bat, Z did a show called Sawal 10 crore with Anupam Kher and Manisha Koirala, threatening to give away 10 crores in prize money. But that didn't work. And that was flawed from the start, because it was never about the money.
Yeah.
KBC was never about the money. KBC was about a million other things.
Yeah.
Then I think 6 months down the line, Sony came up with their Chappad Phadke with Govinda. Yeah. So that was their attempt. So, I mean, I think the most of that year, that is from July 2000 to July 2001, was spent with the 2 main competitors, Z and Sony, sort of reacting, being more reactive,
yes,
rather than anything else. And in the meanwhile, what we were really focused on was that we knew that we had a hit with KBC, but we were really, really keen on building our drama content. Because the mainstay of this is always going to be the daily soap and the dramas and that shows. KBC can't survive and keep us going for 10 years. So we were very focused on that. So all through that period, while everyone was sort of focused on KBC, we were building out the daily soap dramas. And no one else reacted to that. They were still doing weekly soaps, and they were sort of, still trying to fight KBC. By the time they sort of gave up the KBC fight, we had already got entrenched then. I mean, we were 8 to 11 with only KBC 9 to 10. So we had like 4-5 successful soaps on air. And around December 2001, when KBC was sort of fatiguing, and we said, okay, let's take a break. We replaced that 9 to 10 band with 1 hour weeklies, which then later also gave way to dailies. So I mean, by that time we were a bit ahead, and we used to do other things. So we always kept improving the quality of content. We kept increasing the budgets. We had the ratings, right? So we had the GRPs. So which means that the ad sales team could drive higher revenue. So it becomes almost like one of those virtuous cycles, right? That I got bigger ratings, I spend more money to make better programming, and then I get more revenue because I got more ratings. For the competitor at that time, you got low ratings, you can't spend more money, because if you spend more money, then you can't get the revenue. So it becomes in many ways how companies struggle in Tamil Nadu to compete with Sun. That how do you break out of that? So.
But Sameer, tell me something. I mean, though this was hugely successful, there was a lot of criticism around the content that was also being made. How did you react to that? Like, what did you think of what it was that you were creating?
See, at the time when we were doing this, and it's interesting because obviously the criticism came from the fact that there are always two Indias, the famous India and Bharat, and all of that. This is a time when the whole cable business was growing, cable satellite TV. We were coming from a zone where there were 2 million satellite homes coming up to about 25 million satellite homes. By 2007, these 25 million satellite homes had reached 80 million satellite homes. So this was a period of market expansion. This was a period of a whole new wave of people coming into the market. The second thing is that typically what happens is the classic difference between, what you call parallel and art cinema and the Manmohan Desai version of cinema, right? And we've seen it before also in the past. So there's a degree of intellectualism and there's a degree of entertainment. And I think what we willfully did at the time was to go down the track of creating an entertainment channel. So we were quite clear about that, Within that, obviously, there are storytelling styles and all of that. So funnily enough, there were two things that were happening at the same time. So there was, on the one hand, a Karan Johar who was making Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, and there was Ekta Kapoor making Kyun Ki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. And when you think about it, they are the identical shows, right? Kyun Ki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi is about Saas and Bahu, and Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum was about Sasur and Bahu. But it was the same thing. It was, he was doing it on that big 70 with, the biggest movie stars and all of that. But at its core, it was the same. It's all about loving your family. And we were doing the same on TV. And, I think the two together also galvanized India in a direction, of, making all this. I mean, today we talk so much about culture and, Hindu revival and all of that. We were already doing it in 2000. There was another show we started, I think, in 2001 or 2 called Yatra, where, we used to go to all the temples and do darshans and all that. This is doing it in 2002. I mean, when sometimes people get all het up about, what we ought to be doing, I think, done that. It's happened. So I think, I don't know. See, the criticism usually came from whether, this is regressive. Usually that was the term I've heard a lot. Is it regressive? Our answer for that usually used to be that, in order to, to provide a solution, you must create a conflict and then proceed to resolve it. So, there are different ways of doing that. And one version is to, create a scenario which may appear to you as regressive or may appear to you as sort of, very traditional, and then have someone break out. And actually in all of the shows, I mean, Ekta is hardly the traditionalist. So, I mean, in all the shows, there's always been the breaking out. I mean, at one point, Smriti Irani kills the son, right? When she hears as to what he's done. So she kills him. So, I mean, all of that stuff has happened. We've done a lot of progressive stuff. It was just, enveloped in that. And also the thing is, it became so successful that it becomes easier for an intellectual to sort of look at it and say, what kind of nonsense is this? These bahus wake up in the morning fully dressed up with makeup and, like, how does this work? But it's okay. I mean, it was just a thing. It was like, questioning Amar Akbar Anthony and how can, the 3 people with different blood groups give one person blood and it just works, in that manner, 3 people. But the thing is that, with content, what happens is that there are two, you can appeal to the mind and you can appeal to the heart, right? And often enough, popular content appeals to the heart, right? It's not, to the mind, you're talking with logic. To the heart, you're talking with heart, and it's a different thing. It's a different thing.
Sameer, when you moved on from Star, you launched Imagine in 2007.
Right.
you were the chief architect of the market because you'd created it. How do you find the how do you fight the giants you created? What was your strategy?
Oh, it's very tough. So, I mean, as a strategy, I mean, obviously the sense was, and there were learnings there, and obviously, we made mistakes at Imagine because one sense was that the market has fatigued with the greatness of Star. There's maybe the soaps and all have now run their course, and the market needs something new. So that was one obvious thought. The other one was that the three-player market can easily have four or five players, and that there will be a little bit of push and pull and all of that. We are of course a very confident team. We've had success, so we were quite clear what we want to do, and we had some good ideas. So when we launched Imagine in 2008, I mean, we launched with Ramayana, so that was a big one to bring back a mythology as a daily soap in prime time, right? So that was like a really clever and smart idea. I remember when I told Prasoon Joshi about it for the first time, he was like, really startled. He was our agency at the time. So he said like, oh my God, this is going to be killer, man. So I said, let's see. And also, I mean, we were quite excited about that. We had also given it to the Sagars to make, the ones who had made the original Ramayana.
Original one, yes.
So, I mean, we had lots of bright ideas. I mean, Shailaja Kejriwal was the programming head, and we had shows like Radha Ki Betiyan, Ek Packet Umeed, Jyoti. There was a really good package, and we were quite. So now, in hindsight, what are the errors we made is that there was this conversation came up that should we launch with also one big game show at launch, right? So that with all this package and also the game show. But we decided against it. I said, let's wait, let's get this started, and maybe we'll do it a little later. So we decided we'll do it in June or July. That was, in hindsight, an error. We should have launched right upfront. The second thing that happened was that we launched in Jan. Pranay and me had this conversation many times before that should we launch earlier? Should we launch earlier? Should we come in Diwali? And I said, hey, listen, I don't know, we couldn't get it together. We weren't ready, all of that. But maybe we should have, because we launched in Jan 21st, and in April IPL came.
Yes.
And first IPL. And so, like, in a sense, we're a fledgling channel. We're getting up to like 100 GRPs, which is not bad. Like a 2-3 month old channel getting up to 100 GRP is not a bad thing. And then suddenly IPL comes out and nobody knows what IPL is. And then IPL turns out to be this crazy tsunami that comes and just flattens everything. So while the bigger channels have been there around for some time, we are like, one small sapling and
so we commercialized Ranji.
Commercialized Ranji, exactly. I was horrified. I said, good Lord, now what is this? So, but then that happened. And then by the time we recover from that in July, Colors launches, and Colors launches with all of these. So Colors launches with Big Boss and Khatron Ke Khiladi and Jai Shri Krishna and Bla and Blue and then Balika Vadhu. I mean, epic stuff. So now they've done that. Now they've got 9 months before the next IPL to come. So they've got more chance. Then in September, Lehman shuts. So then, I mean, that was a pretty crazy year, 2008. So these are wild times, and so we fought on. I mean, many exciting things happened. We did, at Imagine, we did a lot of exciting stuff because we did Rakhi Ka Swayamvar, which was quite wild. We did O8 Friday. So we were quite kicked with that. So, I mean, these are all really fun shows. We had good fun doing all of that. And, essentially navigating through stormy seas between a collapsing, a recessionary environment, the market collapsing, no money, lack of funding, all of that, and fighting these channel wars. So,
but Sameer, tell me something. When you've had such staggering success, and then you decide to, then what tends to happen is, if you're at a helm of something and things just keep succeeding one after the other, do you sometimes feel that people stop questioning you?
Yeah, I suppose they do. I mean, see, the question is who is to question, right? As in the sense is that who is the questioning? I think internally as a company, we spent a lot of time worrying about everything. I mean, I'm a natural worrier, so I worry a lot. So like, I mean, when we were in Star, I mean, there was a lot of discussion about when Jassi happened. And in fact, I brought it to everyone's attention internally that, listen, there's some show called Jassi and there's this ugly girl, but it's sort of growing. And of course, at that time, Kyoki was at 24 and Jassi was at 4. But even then, my sort of question was, why is it even 4? It should be 0.4, right? Later, around 2005-6, there was a show on Z called Saath Fere.
Yes.
Which was again, sort of gaining traction and all of that. So I suppose in that sense, we've always sort of looked back and asked. I don't think we have ever been those kind of professionals who sort of do whatever you want to do and no questioning. We're just successful. It's never been that. We launched Star One. We did Coffee with Karan. Star One had such exciting show. There was Great Indian Laughter Challenge. There was Great Indian Comedy Show. All of those, Guns N' Roses and Remix and all of that. So I mean, I think we've always, I like doing this. I like telling stories. I like to, tell new things, and we're always looking to push to do things differently. So I don't think that is ever the danger. I suppose what happens is that, when you're successful, you tend to do more of the same because, the logic being why fix it if it ain't broke. And which is often true. There's a reason why the formula exists. People say it's so formulaic. The reason why the formula exists is because formulas work. It's not that formulas don't work. Formulas work very well. So I think, no, I don't think it's not about no one questioning. There are so many other factors at play. It's not just the content, it's revenue, it is targets, it's growth numbers, industry per se, economy, all of that come into questioning.
What I meant by that question was that, when you're at the, when the creative, the vision is coming from you and it's working. You go to Imagine, how do you keep yourself on your toes? Like by creating, you need to have people around you who are constantly in discussion with you, who are constantly giving you scenarios why this idea might not work.
Yeah. Actually, no, honestly, the thing is that it would be wrong to say that the vision comes from me. That's not the kind of person I am, and that's not the way we work at all. So like at different points in time, different people, filmmaking is a collaborative art form, right? And I think that anything we do in this business, in this audiovisual business, must be collaborative. I think everything in the media business must be collaborative. So that's how we work. So like, for example, the KBC idea originally came from Steve Askew, who bought the tape and gave it to me, right? Later we decided to do it and went ahead. Kyunki came to me directly. Kahani came from Tarun. Once that happened, things like Desh Mein Nikla Hoga Chand or Sara Akash were driven by Shailaja and Deepak. Star One was a lot of Deepak Sehgal all through. So many small things. Laughter Challenge was me. I said, "Ye karna hi hai ye pagal show ko." Coffee with Karan was a thing. I had met Karan and he said, "Okay, let's do this talk show as an antithesis to Simi." So I mean, there are different people, but I think the bigger deal is when we did Imagine, Ramayan was Shailaja's idea. It was not like my vision. She's the one who said, "Boss, let's do this." I said, "Cool, let's do it. It sounds good." So I think I have been fortunate working with a lot of, wonderful people. And these wonderful people have also, I encourage that, that there must be new ideas. We must think of new stuff to do. So it can come from anywhere. So I do have one philosophy which says that, a great idea can come from anywhere, but it can't necessarily be executed by that person. So like, I'm always open to having a young kid walk up to me and say, "Yeah, I have a great promo idea," which has happened so many times in Star. That, "You're the great promo idea." I say, "Wow, that's a really good idea. Now wait here for a minute." And I call the head of promos and I say, "Come, listen to this stuff, go make it." And I tell this guy, "Go work with him now and go learn something and let the pro execute it now." So I think our big skill has always been in execution, right? Of actually getting things together and making them work together. So in that sense, I don't think I've ever been sort of stuck in a my way or the highway kind of thing. It's everyone's involved and everyone has got ideas and, and different people have got different views and there's much excitement and angst in this.
Sameer, what were the key learnings from Imagine and that time that was difficult, because the world went into a recession. There were so many things that happened. What were your key learnings? Did you feel gobsmacked? Did you?
Yeah, I think we were quite sort of like, "Oh my God, what the hell happened?" kind of thing. But I think again, see, it becomes like with a big success and with then a subsequent failure, it's the same thing. While it's going on, you don't have a view on it, right? You don't have that view. What you're doing is you're actually fighting day by day. So like 7 years ago, I was fighting day by day to win more and more. And now 7 years later, I'm fighting day by day to not lose, not die, not collapse, not fail. And that's what we're doing because the market is collapsing, the funding is dried up. I have a team, we're still in the ratings game, we're still fighting, we're still doing that. So I think all of that period was really, I think that taught me a lot about management. It taught me about, how to stay calm, to stay collected, to, sort of live day by day, continue to, motivate the team, create content, do all of those things. And we managed to do the sale. Finally, we managed to make a sale to Turner Network and, managed to give NDTV an exit. So all of those happened. Then we became part of the Turner company. And after which I had left. So, I mean, I think the learning at that time was really, because I suppose, so many years in Star, successful also made us forget what happens if something doesn't work, right? Like, it's been a long time since something didn't work. So it's a bit of a thing. So I think we did well enough. I mean, I'm still here talking to you, still smiling. So, so I mean, I'm sure.
No, but there is so much to learn from that, because I think there are learnings both from success and failure.
Yeah, of course. Actually, more learnings come out of failure because like small things that like we knew always, and this is something I've said many times, that the one thing that we weren't able to crack at Imagine was the successful daily soap. So we had become really good at. I mean, we were able to crack all the non-fiction pieces. You know, so I mean, the non-fiction team at Imagine was really smart and sharp, and between Sabri and Meghna and Swati and Silomi and all led by Shailaja, really clever, really smart, and all this Rakhi Ka Swayamvar and Shadi Teen Crore Ki and Oh It's Friday, all of that used to do quite well. But you need to, you need that linchpin of the 2-3 daily soaps, and we couldn't crack that. So it was just one of those things. That's not to say that for lack of trying. I think we used to work really hard. We used to try new ideas, differentiated ideas. I mean, we started off by doing Ramayana straight away, and the one that became a hit in colors was Balika Vadhu and Jai Shri Krishna.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to that extent, we were right about the mythology thought, and it did well for us, but not well enough. So I think it was not for lack of trying. It was not for lack of thinking. It was one of those things, maybe it was that after so much wild success, maybe, you need to get a rap on the knuckles. So, well, there you go.
But seriously, through the years, if you were to just put it down for us, through the years, what do you think has made you endure? How have you stayed on top of the game despite all the upheavals, despite it being like a bit of a ride and it getting tough, and then the resurrection? What do you feel has kept you in the game?
They say that it's a sort of a saying that I really took to heart. I really believe in it, which is that you're not as great as they say you are when you succeed, and you're not as bad as they say you are when you fail, right? Life is actually somewhere in the middle. It always is somewhere in the middle, right? So even when you're wildly successful, that doesn't at any level make you a superman, you know just because you're successful, because success is a very it's an external thing, right? Success is a validation from externally, right? It's people, because how do you define success? You define success with money or ratings or whatever, box office or something like that. But that is not necessarily you. In the same way, how do you define failure? It's again defined by lack of money, lack of rating, lack of box office, lack of something. But again, that's not you. So I think that staying and leading life in the center is important, because in that way you neither get carried away in this direction or that direction, right? Now within that, I am inherently, I'm terribly curious. I'm always interested in knowing new things, doing new things, all of that. And I don't dwell too much. So I don't dwell on success, I don't dwell on failure. I mean, we've had a wild hit, so as far as I'm concerned, thank you very much, and now let's get back to work. Oftentimes people ask me what's next. I say next is Monday. Monday is next. It's going to come again the next week. Again, it'll start. Again, the clock starts. Again, the fight starts. I mean, so we've had one wild success with Scam 1992. So good. I'm happy for that, and I'm really excited and all of that. But now we've just raised a bar for ourselves, and we got to work that much harder. So I mean, that's what it is. So I try and sort of I don't get too caught up with the past, either success or failure. And sort of I'm hungry. Like, I think this has been said in sport that some of the people with more longevity have that desire to keep playing the game. They don't want to retire. They want to keep playing. I think I'm like that. I want to play. I got lots more to do.
But tell me something, Samir. When post Imagine, Alt Balaji happened. But I want to know that from an extremely powerful position, you're creating something new. At that point of time, when you're successful, what do you need to do to prepare yourself for times that it might not be as good as it is at that moment? What kind of, held you in good stead when you were making a detour like that?
See, actually, it was not a detour. After Imagine, I got a couple of years to play entrepreneur because that's what I wanted to do.
Yes.
In 2011, I had decided in any case that, listen, I don't want to do TV anymore because, how am I going to top that effort? Like that would be now, either I got to go and land a job of, a head of one of the networks, but they were all full up and all settled. So there was not really like anything available. I didn't want to get into the game of trying to start one more and all of that stuff. It's too tough, too hard to do. And I was really sort of, positioning myself and my head and my brain towards a new digital world. So while in 2011, that might have been very early to talk about, but I thought this is the future, this is where we should go and this and that. So I said, let's try and do other things. So like we were trying to set up a comedy network collective, right? So I was working with Suresh Menon and Ace Thomas with that. I was working with another colleague about doing something in the online space. I dabbled a little bit in understanding politics better. It was at that time that I got a call from Balaji to become an advisor to Balaji. And I've known Ekta and Shobha Kapoor and Jitu.
Very long time.
So I sort of agreed in 2013 to become an advisor to Balaji. And so I used to also advise him. It is that led to this matter of, listen, we want to, make some changes and we want to do stuff and we have grand plans for Balaji and all of that. So would you like come on board and be a group CEO and help us with that? And at that time I thought, yeah, okay, sure. I wasn't looking at it as a come down in life. It was a good thing to do. I thought like, wow, that would be cool. And in fact, when later 2-3 years later, when we launched Alt Balaji, you must appreciate that we launched a OTT platform, with original content out of Andheri. It was not a large company. It was not a foreign company. We don't have an LA office. We don't have engineers from the Valley. It was a team that was built, there was Sunil Nair, Nachiket, Mansi, Joyce, Nimisha Pandey, Manav Sethi, it was that gang. Now we were a bunch of things in Andheri. In actually what you would speak is a mom and pop shop, right? In a mom and pop shop and no engineers. And we built that and we got the resources, we created the content when we actually launched it. When it launched in 2017 in April, it was quite an achievement. I was quite proud of myself, that this is, because that is genuinely a startup, right? Because you're talking about also a cultural thing. Balaji as a company is a company that makes television programming and does some very cool movies. But to run a platform, to create and run a platform is a thing, because it also required a certain degree of education of the promoters themselves, right? So while Ekta is all very aligned and tuned to what has to be done, it's, her parents need to be aligned as well. So I think it was, I enjoyed my time then. I used to have to go, because it was a listed company. Every quarter I had to land up and, give these very difficult interviews to CNBC and, ET Now. And then they asked me, we used to come from Star, right? Star and Imagine. So no one ever asked us anything when you were asking, right? Who questions? See, if you're not listed, no one's questioning. It's all internal questioning. But in Balaji, every quarter, oh, what is this? This show has not worked well. Oh, Nagin has done well. Oh, this is, it was fantastic. I loved the experience. And at the end of the day, Ekta, I've known her for so many years, and she's a wonderful person. And my thing is that whoever I work with, whoever I come in contact with, I'm always looking to learn from them, right? So I'm always, trying to see what makes other people tick. How do they do what they do? What makes them so successful? Like whether it's actors or directors or just other producers or big channel leaders or people in history, whatever. I'm always curious to know. So yeah, it was good. I thought the Balaji stint was wonderful.
And then how, with applause happening, like what is the vision? What is the creative vision for applause? You said something very interesting that basically what you want to do is you want to make content and then you want to go shopping for a platform and not the other way around.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
See, that's what originally also, in a sense, what Applause is like a hybrid movie studio, right? It's a traditional new age media company, right? So it's very traditional. I'm very traditional. I think that the big Hollywood studios of the early 20th century, they really grew and became big. Disney and MGM and Paramount, all of them, and ditto in India. So I think there is a role to be played. Movies continue to do that, where you attract capital towards content creation, you make the content and then you release it. I've just taken that same thought and applied it to the series business and applied it to this platform business. So I'm still doing the same thing. I'm doing what has been done in the US for the last 30 years. It's the same theory, just that not getting commissioned in that sense. You're sort of taking that risk. And in a sense, applause is exactly like the scam line, ki risk hai to ishq hai. So I mean, we've really built it out on that manner that we go out there. We
couldn't have done this session without that line.
no, it can't be. If you didn't ask me about it, I would have to. I would have to bring it in somehow. Then, so yeah. So I mean, that's what we set out to do. And I must say that in Mr. Birla, because he's the one I spoke to first about this idea, is that he's a true patron of the arts, which is really important because it's not a thing about being a it's obviously you've got a big industrial conglomerate and all of that, and there are many other companies like that who are big industrialists who have got all these. But it's a different thing about being a patron of the arts. It's about that appreciation of what art is, of what we are trying to do, about storytelling, about all of that. So I think that makes a big difference to how we operate, because the amount of freedom, the amount of support, backing, and that really that having that thing, because a lot of what we do is quite risky. That when we embark on these things and say, okay, we're going to make this or we're going to make that, he's never once asked me that like, okay, we're going to make this, so what are we going to do? Because he's going along with that vision that we've set out, that what we want to do is create content, own IP. There is risk and there will be reward. It is a long haul. Our business is about get rich slow, but get rich for sure. Those kind of things. And we want to build brand, we want to build reputation, we want to be known for what we do. We want to go from being applause entertainment to from the house of applause, right? So we are quite clear in our head as to what we are trying to do. We want to create more content, we want to do more domestic collaborations, we want to do international collaborations. Now we are growing out to make movies, documentaries, animation, apart from the series we do. So I mean, we've got plans, we're going stage by stage. Each year we sort of reforecast them, we make bigger plans, we make bigger ideas. And I think it's all coming together well. So I mean, that's the sort of vision. It's all a lot to do with Mr. Birla and the Birla Group that stands right behind us, because otherwise without that there's little you can do.
Samir, I have two questions before, the fantastic people who are on the session with us get to speak to you, and they've been waiting for quite a while because I've only asked half the questions, but it's okay. I'll let them ask now. Otherwise, they'll all go off to sleep and they'll curse me for not letting you speak to them. But the first question is that what are your thoughts on the new OTT rules? And what do they mean for streaming platforms or just material in India that is being made?
Honestly, you know what? I'm not so fussed about it. I think we've had censorship always. It's commonplace. Films have always had the censor board. It's supposed to be the film certification board, but we call it censor board. So you know what that means. TV in the last 20 years has had the self-regulation in place, primarily coming out of the premise and the philosophy that I think as content creators, we must appreciate that we are at the end of the day invited guests in a person's home, into a person's life, right? Now, of course, there are various things. There are technologies, there are parental controls, there are all of those things. But the fact of the matter is that you are creating content and you are putting it out in a relatively public domain, right? And it always happens. There are always, as society evolves, there are societal norms, there are do's and don'ts. I think the biggest regulator in life is the audience themselves, right? More than anyone else, more than any establishment, more than any government, it's the audience that regulates things as to what is kosher and what is not, right? At what point, how much can we take and how much can we not? Which is why a lot of people watch porn privately, right? And you'll never admit to it, right? Somebody says, hey, what do you see last? As the last, you say, I saw a great show on Natural Geographic, right? You're not going to say, I saw porn yesterday, because it's taboo. It's not something that's done. So I think what's happening is now that, there's obviously regulation. This conversation has been going on for some time about the need for self-regulation. I think it's fair enough to do. TV does it. Films anyway have the censor board in place. So, I mean, also what happens is, since there are so many different moving parts, it is fair to say that if a filmmaker has made a film which has to go through a censor board, then why shouldn't the same thing be applied to an OTT series? I mean, why not? Like what's different? Because eventually you're seeing the films coming on the same OTT platform. So why should the film go through the censor board and the series not? It's just those kind of things. The other thing is that I suppose what happens is that every time there is regulation, every time there is a sort of a curb, as we like to call it, on our freedom of expression, it probably helps elevate the quality of our writing and the quality of our storytelling, and the way we choose to put these messages and what we want to out there. As in it makes you think harder, it makes you work harder. I mean, all great sort of expressions and all great sort of rebellions and all great mutinies have come out of these things. Out of greater storytelling has evolved coming from these kind of things. So like, I mean, in 75 during the emergency, they banned that movie Auntie. So I mean, they weren't allowed to see it, right? We couldn't see it then, and I think we saw it much later. I think in 1980 or 82 once it came on DD. So I mean, it's not like this is not the first time anything like this is happening. It's happened before, and it's just a thing. I think we are living globally. We are living in a very, very volatile and polarized environment, and I think that puts the onus on creators and storytellers like us to tell better stories, to do it smarter, to do it cleverer, and not whine and moan about, oh, they are stopping me from saying what I want to say. Because when you say you have a freedom to express, you also have a freedom to be offended, right? If I have a freedom to offend, then you have the right to be offended. So I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Sameer, the last question is that a lot of people now want to make content, make films, make shows, and I'm sure that the volume of ideas that Applause gets must be staggering. Is there a system in place to respond to people, to make sure that there is a timeline that is given for a response? Because half the anxiety and half the angst that comes, that pervades the industry is the fact that people don't even get to hear a yes or a no. And I always ask this question to anyone who's heading a studio, a production house. I ask this to Shrishti at Netflix, because I was like, this is what I hear consistently, कि हमने mail लिखा था, जवाब नहीं मिला, हमें पता नहीं कब होगा. So, is there a system that you put into place so that people can get a response, and there is a department that is reading and consistently, sort of going through drafts to just respond to people and get back to people?
So what we have is, at Applause, we have a commissioning team and a commissioning editor who do only this. So they're not part of the creative director teams. So they are not the executing team. The only job is to receive material, assess it, and respond. And so we do that for a living. It's a 3-man team, and they do a lot of reactive work for that. The person who heads it is a guy called Ranjeev Majumdar. I don't know whether you know him.
I know him. I know Ranjeev really well.
Ranjeev's my man for that. Ranjeev is very, very critical about a lot of things, but he does a great job. And so yeah, we do that. It does take time. It's not easy to do because Ranjeev tends to be very, very meticulous. I'm now teaching them the art of failing fast, which is that, read something quickly and decide quickly whether you want to do it or not. So if you don't want to do it, then just finish it. Because otherwise what they like to do is they like to read it fully, then reread it, then have much internal discussion, then reread it again, then present it to me, and then tell me, oh, this is crap. I said, you can, guys, let's find a smarter way to do this. The first, you should be able to be taking the decision by the third sentence. It starts off with, on a dark night. No.
Rene Doji, Dark Knight.
Because I think that's important. Though, of course, you must go through everything because, it's really important because there are so many good ideas out there. There are so many people. And often again, as I told you, that a good idea can come from anywhere. Whether the person who's giving the good idea can execute it or not is a different matter, right? So sometimes we need to do that. Yeah, so we do that. We have a department for this. We try and respond as soon as possible. As soon as possible is usually that 4 to 6 weeks. It can't be done faster. I mean, people send us stuff on Friday and then start calling me on Monday saying, tell me. But I mean, it's just a thing. But I can understand that. I can understand that anxiety. I can understand that angst. It is that, everyone is keen to get stuff done. People want to work. It's important. And we should be sort of sensitive to that. A lot of people have their lives and their hopes riding on, some silly approval that we are going to give. So it's not like we are some geniuses who know everything either. But for whatever it's worth, I think it's important to be polite and courteous. And
Thank you, Samir. I'm going to consistently interrupt and keep asking questions, but can I
right.
request everyone who's on the session with us to switch on their cameras, please? There they are. Wow, we've got Rohini in the room. We've got Nasreen Muni Kabir. We've got Siddharth Menon. We've got a lot of people that usually join us and some new people. So welcome everyone. And can I request Nasreen Muni Kabir to be unmuted, please? Hi, Nasreen. How are you?
I'm fine. It's a lovely sunny day in London. At last, at last.
Listen, so good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And please go ahead and ask Samir whatever it is that you would like to ask.
Yes. Actually, Samir, obviously the streamers have impacted greatly who watches what and how the audience is shifting. What do you think is happening to the broadcasters? Are they losing a lot of audience to streamers in India?
In India, I think the broadcasters still have a lot of headroom because, it's a very large market. The streamers in that sense have, if I talk numbers, broadcasters currently reach about 197 million homes. The streamers, the paid streamers, which is the subscription driven streamers, are now up to like 15 or 20 million. So that gap is pretty large as to, how many people have to still be reached.
It's huge.
The thing with India is that television is really cheap. So what happened in the West, the whole cord cutting happened primarily because cable TV was so expensive that the streamer was cheap, right? So like in the US, your package for cable TV is $80 and then Netflix comes around with $10. So then it becomes cheap. In India, your cable package is like $3. So, Netflix is technically more expensive than the cable service here. And the cable service here gives you all channels, sports, news, music, entertainment, everything. So it's a bit of a thing. So, I mean, TV can continue. I mean, it can go on. Whether TV as a content provider and, as audiences shift and as data is cheap and people have got devices, and the pandemic helped a lot in that, is that a lot more people became exposed to what the streamers are, what they offer, what kind of content, different from what is on TV. So I think that is the opportunity. That is the opportunity for the streamers to genuinely expand their scale, to go from their 15 million to say 100 million. And it's not that it will affect TV immediately, but yeah, I mean, over a longer horizon, I think the world is changing.
I mean, that's a brilliant analysis, the clearest I've heard since. One little question more, is there a class divide in terms of who's watching what?
Again, I think the class divide really comes from, because most of this is quite cheap, because data is cheap and now devices have become cheap. Everything's made in China. So, it's all easily available. I think audiences make those preferences. So like we make all kinds of content. We make, very, very, like we made a show called Criminal Justice, the second season, which is about, domestic abuse and marital rape and all of that, which is and we did it quite disturbingly in the sense that it was not very, sort of voyeuristic at all. The actual incident is, belly there. And it's really sort of a sensible and serious show. And it's done really well. On the other hand, we do a show like Hello Minnie, which is on MX Player, which is about a young girl who's being stalked. And it goes on in that manner. And she's forever being stalked. And it's taken 2 seasons. And she's still being stalked. And now season 3 is going to come up and the stalker will continue to stalk her. And it's a different kind of, we call it sexy scary as a genre. So, I mean, it's just different types. And there are different audiences for that. So I think audiences make those choices. As creators, we try not to have I don't think we should have class divides. Ideally, like a show like Scam, cut across everyone, right? So from rich to poor, from, urban to, small town to, young to old. I mean, one would think this is a story about a stockbroker from 1992. And, why is it appealing to everyone? But it does, it appeals to everyone because it's that kind of story that cut through. So when we sort of try to do that, we don't have a class divide in mind. It's audiences who make those choices.
Thank you so much. Brilliant answers, honestly. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasreen. Sexy scary is a genre. I learned something in every session.
It's a good genre. It's a good genre.
I guess You falls into that, the Netflix show.
Which one?
You.
Yes. Yeah. There are so many actually. I mean, there are so many shows that get made like this.
I think I haven't done too much sexy scary. Maybe I should start. Can we unmute Rohini Ramanathan, please? The lovely Rohini. Hey,
Hi.
go for it.
Thank you so much for this session. You know, you don't get a chance to see Samir talk too often, and I'm so happy with this, Smriti. I'm a big fan, actually. Let me start with that.
Thank you so much.
So much so that I've been, through these beats of Indian television. When I came out of media school, that was my choice whether to do Indian television or, then I said I'll make a documentary film. And I did that because I didn't want to be part of Indian television at that point. And then I chose radio. So, Samir, you've been part of my life without even knowing it. So thank you so much. But yes, most recently, I think when you send out those beautiful hampers, like one full chap, I was like, even I want this hamper. And Samir actually sent it to me on Twitter. But today, I think for the benefit of everybody, Smriti, it was great that you covered everything until scam. And I'm sure all the questions now on shall be scam related. So thank you for saving the scam questions for us. I'm a big one to understand or to know origin stories. So I would love it for the benefit of everybody here. Samir, if you can tell us what was that first email or what was that first pitch draft that you received before you said, I'm going to do Scam 1992?
Well, actually, there was no pitch email or first draft. We wanted to do Scam in 2012. So Deepak Sehgal and me, after I'd left from Imagine, Deepak Sehgal and me got together and we set up a production company called Pride Rock. And we said, let's do some really cool programming. Let's do some breakthrough stuff and all of that. So at that time, one of the first ideas that I suggested to him was that let's do this Harshad Mehta story. It's really colorful and nice. But in 2012, it was like, too obscure, too vague. I mean, how would we do it? There were no streamers at the time as well. So it sort of got parked. And then when we started Applause in 2017, I brought up this idea again because Sharik Patel from Z Studio, who's now in Z Studio, but at that time he was an independent producer, and he came and met me, he's an old friend. And he said, listen, I want to do something. What can we do? So I told him, I said, hey, listen, Sharik, let's make Scam. Let's find Sucheta, let's buy that book and let's make Scam. So he said, yeah, okay, cool. So I said, good. Now what you do is you go and reach out to Sucheta and you now make contact with her and get started. Because we were like a 5-man team at the time. So I thought, okay, let's get working on this. So he made contact with Sucheta immediately. And then shortly after that, me and my colleague Priya went and met her and we did the discussion and all that. And they started negotiating to get the book. I think we managed to crack that book deal by about February 2018. So after the book was gotten, concurrent to that, I was trying to work with Hansal Mehta. So Hansal was somebody whom I had interacted with at Balaji when he did that show for us, Bose. He was the creative director on that, and something that I wanted to do. I've liked Hansal's work, his more recent movies and all of that. So I wanted to work with him. So I had actually reached out to him and Kaun, and we signed up Hansal. So we signed up Hansal independent of this, and so that was Hansal signed. So then Hansal has been paid and Hansal has been signed. Then when we got talking as to, okay, Hansal, what shall we do? What ideas do you have and all of that? So he said, well, I've got a lot of thoughts. I said, hey, listen, I've got this book Scam. You want to make that? He said, totally. I've spent my entire career with people confusing me and Harshad Mehta, saying, when I say Hansal Mehta, people say Harshad Mehta. So I said, that's it then, there's not much more to think about this. So then that's it then. So Hansal was there. There was Sharik as the producer and the book had been acquired. Then we started working. Then, of course, we had quite a journey because Sharik then about 2-3 months on from there, one day came, met me in the home and said that, listen, I'm sorry, but I've just got a job offer to join Z Studio, the CEO. So I said, you have got to go, man. You better take it and go, like this producer job is damn hard. So then he went off there. Then from there, we moved to Reliance Studios because Hansal had previously worked on Boss with Indranil Chakrabarti, who was in Reliance. So I said, big synergy Reliance. So I said, okay, let's move the show to them. So then they continued from there. Then about 5-6 months later, Indranil left and went and joined Studio Next. So now we are again left with, work has started, but now no producer. Then at one point, Hansal said that, okay, he'll produce it himself. So his sort of company and partner, Karma, they took on the project, but that wasn't going anywhere. Plus, Hansal was busy. He was doing Chalang and he was creative director on Accidental Prime Minister. So there were many things going on at the time. Then I moved it back to Studio Next to Indranil again and said, let's do the marriage again. So now it was back with Indraneel and Hansal and that thing. And then around 2018, late 18, 19, it got moving in earnest. And then, we started writing and, casting, and there were many iterations, 2, 3 versions of the writer's room. The latest guy to come on board was this guy, Karan Vyas, who wrote all those delightful dialogues.
Yeah.
So Weber Vishal wrote the famous Risk Hai To Ishq Hai, but almost every other line after that has been written by this guy Karan Vyas, including all the little twang and lala and lighter leke ghumta, all those kind of little things. And then Mukesh Chabra did this amazing casting. Hansal had come to us with Pratik. He said that, listen, this boy I have great faith in, let's keep him. So I said, okay, let's do it then. So we did that. And, Pratik turned out to be like, truly amazing. Like I think within the first couple of minutes of the show, he just owns the stage like a boss. And we never, we were originally thinking that we wanted to cast likeness, like somebody who looks like, much like how Pablo had been done in Narcos.
Yeah.
But then we went with this thing about Pratik being an actor and how he'd sort of, own the character rather than just be a lookalike. And it paid off as a gamble. And then we went, I think we started shooting around August 2019. We shot all the way till March, with breaks and all of that stuff. And then shortly after we finished shooting, the lockdown happened. So then the post of this show was done in the lockdown. So like from that time onwards, no one ever met. And the lockdown in many ways, now, we've all become used to it. But in all honesty, this was right at the start of where you first thought, oh, in 3 weeks, it'll all open. Then in 6 weeks, it'll all open. Then in 8 weeks, it'll all open. That this is a fraud, this pandemic is not for real. Then suddenly the depression, we're all going to die. It's all over. What about the migrants? All the related emotional drama was also going on at that time. But we did it. We did the post remotely. All of that was done. All the cleanups, all of that stuff. Fantastic music, great performances. And then Sony Live been fantastic partners. So they marketed it so well, and they had so much belief in the show that they really put it out there. So I think when the first promo went out, I remember speaking to Danish Khan, and this was his and his marketing team's idea that, boss, we got to figure out a way that why would anyone today, the younger audience especially, be interested in Harshad Mehta, right? Why would anyone be interested? So we want to put a promo out which opens with that line from the show where that Manik, or Satish Kaushik says, "Ye Harshad Mehta bhanchot hai kaun?" And it opens with that. So it kind of goes off with that, and then goes off, "Ye Harshad Mehta big bull hai, ye hai, wo, and all that drama bazi. And then it sort of released, and the show has that, lots of dialogues, rags to riches, that whole Bachchan feel, 70s ka, daring, and the guy going out there and taking on all the rich people, and obviously disadvantaged, but winning against all odds. And then of course that that classic Shakespearean tragic end. Oh, good Lord. So yeah, we are happy. We are happy.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much, Smriti. And I think in a weird way, I think the lockdown truly was the best thing to happen to the streaming industry. It's almost like you guys, there's got to be a positive to everything. So thank you for this opportunity.
No, it was a big positive. I think the good thing that happened with the streaming industry was that because of the lockdown, it was always there. So it's been there from 15, 16 in India. But the thing is that not enough people had sampled it. And, people are busy in their own lives and, going to work and doing stuff. And then you try and stick with your own routine. So you come home, you watch TV or you do whatever. Because of the lockdown, people had more time to check out other things. And they all checked out streaming. And like, for example, my mom, when she discovered streaming, she was amazed, like, what are you saying? This thing remembers where I stopped yesterday and I can actually continue watching tomorrow. What magical technology is this? Because TV is not like that, right? TV is ad breaks and you missed the movie and it's gone. You can never find it again. It never comes back again. TV is a very, it's a linear medium and it's like tonight at 9. Streaming is like a giant library that is always there and it keeps reminding you, you haven't finished this, you may like this, you may want that, what about this? Check this out, this is new. It's like it's a relationship, and some of the platforms with excellent technology, it's quite a deep relationship you have with them.
Yeah, it's quite scary also, Sameer. Because if you're not looking at the screen for a long time, Netflix does check on you.
Yeah, of course, they got to check on you. Like I didn't realize what I was doing. I saw a tweet from Amazon for the Tufan trailer. And I saw it, I said, oh, how cool. I didn't read the fine print, which says that retweet or like for us to give you a reminder. So I liked it. And now they keep informing me that, you know, like, dude, the trailer is released. Now this is happening. And I'm thinking, how do they know? But it was that great. So yeah.
Thank you, Rohini. Thank you so much, Sameer. Can we unmute Maitri Karya, please?
Hello, hello, sir.
Hi, Maitri. I'm so sorry we weren't able to meet on that day, but I had to go and take my mom to get her vaccinated. So I'm sure we'll schedule it again.
Absolutely, I understand it. Thank you so much. This has been an amazing session. I too got to learn a lot. My question for you would be, because I am a recent media graduate and even I'm starting out in the industry, I would like to know what would be your advice for us youngsters who want to work in the media corporate sector. Uh, what path should we follow, or what are those things that we need to keep in mind if we want to crack in the media corporate sector?
I don't know about advice. That would be difficult. But if you are looking to get into the business like what we are doing currently or what others are doing, I mean, one common advice I give to most people is that, you know, oftentimes you can be a specialist, but then you got to be a really good specialist, right? So I mean, you can be a cinematographer, then you can be a great cinematographer, you can be a great editor. But if you're not one of those, so if you're not going to be the brain surgeon, then you got to be a really good generalist, right? And in order to be a really good journalist, you must have an active and very, very intense interest in everything that's going on in your business. You know, so I recommend to everyone that if you're getting into this business, you must want to be a producer in the truest sense of the term, right? In like what Hollywood calls producers or executive producers, either way. So you should, I mean, that's the best way, that you should know everything about, you know, how things get made, why are they made, what is the research going into their making, what are the moving parts of the making, you know, what is the whole process, what is the writing process, what is the research development, casting, pre-production, actual filming, all of that. So the more you know about all of that and you have an active interest in it, right? So there's no job which is too small and there's no job which is too big, right? I think everything should be of interest to you. So if everything is of interest to you, then one is, of course, you find this whole thing becomes more fun and more interesting. And yeah, you enjoy doing that. So I think that's really the key.
Thank you. Can we unmute Jaideep Ashra, please? Hey, Jaideep, go
Hi.
for it.
Yeah, hi. It's first of all, I would like to tell that it's really an interesting session right now. I'm really liking the insights what I'm getting. I'm just noting it down. Ki acha ye, I'm noting down the analysis and everything because I'm just starting off with a lot of things. So my question is, what exactly do we look for in a show or in a brand, or like I'm working on a brand, but I would just like to ask you that what particularly do you look in a show or in a script or in any particular thing that makes you think ki, yes, let's go ahead with it. Like I know there's a lot of gut feeling also, but there's like deep down there will be something like this can work. So
I think, you know, when you say gut feeling, gut is very important, you know, as in
yeah,
at the end of the day, gut is experience, right?
yeah,
Experience is data.
yeah, of course,
So, you know, I think gut is often abused as a term saying ki wo to gut feeling. But gut feeling means the older you are, the more gut you have.
yes, of
That
course,
usually helps. That apart, I think what happens is that the more you're listening, right, to things around you, is a lot of these decisions become informed decisions from on that basis. So, like obviously, you know, like when like this whole theory of, you know, when a platform says you may also like, right, the recommendation engine works on the principle that if you saw one crime thriller, you may like another crime thriller, and it's a very, very powerful human insight. You know, it's like how if you like sneakers, I can sell you another pair. But if you don't like sneakers, then I can go on advertising to you about sneakers, but you're never going to buy it, right?
of course.
Because you want slippers, you don't want sneakers, right? So I think the same thing works in content, and that's how it gets built. Now, in modern times, you've got all this research and data and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of cool jargon for it. But in many ways, all creative industries across the world, and definitely in India, have been doing it in any case, right? That is, there is a degree of experience, there's a degree of audience understanding, and then there's a degree of taking an educated guess that, you know, I think we should do this. So like sometimes what you do is you follow the trend, sometimes you break the trend, right? Now the trick is to not get caught, right? If you're following the trend and if you're the last one doing it, then you're mostly going to have a flop, right? Because I mean, this 100 love stories ban gaye, you made the 101st one. So, oops. But if you made love story number 52, nikal jata, right? You may have gotten away with it. Many times you change the trend. You say, ki, too many love stories, I'm going to do maar dhad action thriller. And that works. Then it becomes a new, herd mentality. Everyone tries to follow that. And there's nothing wrong with the herd mentality. There's nothing wrong with formula. So there's no sort of correct answer. So I suppose what happens in our life is the trick in life, more so now, is to avoid being specifically wrong and trying to be generally right. That's your trick. I know I'm making it sound too simple, but honestly, that's what it is. That you want to avoid being specifically and spectacularly wrong.
Yes.
That's it. Beyond that, then it's generally right. You're trying to sort of head in a direction. Like if you take Scam, for example, Scam as a story, we said, okay, so it's no financial biopic has been done. It's a good, unique idea. It's different. Very colorful period. Very colorful guy. The character is very colorful. We haven't done enough big biopics like this. We want to tell it in this manner. Of course, it got written also in that manner of being real. It's like Diwar, right? Basically, Amitabh Bachchan and that brother is like Shashi Kapoor, who's always like that, that conscience saying, bhai, aisa mat kar kind of thing. It plays out in that manner. So there are some degree of calculated risks. And now we get, of course, data of, what people like. Like the whole world likes crime, right? Everybody likes crime. Nothing unique to India. Everybody likes, murder ho gaya, or what happened. We are always interested. CID kitne 20 saal se to Pradyuman dhoond raha hai na logon ko. And people are still watching. So I think, means they like it. Na, ki abhi kya hua, mila ki nahi. So these are genres that work. Romance works, comedy works. I think the key then becomes is what's unique, what's different, is it fresh, is it a different setting, different people, and many times things just repeat themselves. That's why look at the Americans, they keep rebooting Batman, and each time they reboot Batman, we again watch it. So something's got to be said for reboots as well, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Can we unmute Siddharth Menon, please? Hey, Sid.
Hi, Smriti. Again, thank you, Yash, Kalpana, Gavin, everybody for organizing this session. I have to say this every session, but it's necessary for the planning that you guys do. And thank you, Mr. Samir, for your time. So I had a question with regarding, you along over the past 3 decades, you've migrated from Stars to Imagine to Alt Balaji and now Applause. So each of these organizations kind of cater or churn out different kind of projects. Be it Balaji or be it Applause also. So the sensibilities of the creators are also different. And Applause is a whole different ballgame, right? From the very sleek Scam 1992 to the edgy Hasmukh to my personal favorite, which is Criminal Justice Behind Closed Doors. Mm-hmm. And all of them have such brilliant content, and it's distinctively different from, let's say, from what Alt Balaji used to churn out, and also that Star Plus used to churn out. So, as far as you are concerned, how did you manage to kind of match or kind of meet eye to eye with the creators and match your sensibilities and match their vision while trying to deliver these projects? Because each of them have a different sensibility and a different aesthetic. So, how did you kind of help them in delivering this project?
See, there are two things to this. One is that I like to regard ourselves as creators. So it's not like we are some sort of a financing studio working with people who create. We are creators in our own right, and we often decide what we want to do, how we want to do it, all of that. So I greenlit kyunki, right? It's not like, and then it gets made. I suppose what we try and do and have done always is that you shouldn't let your own sensibility come in the way of doing what is right. Right? I think oftentimes people do that, is that you take your sensibility and you sort of foist it upon something else. And that doesn't work like that. So I think, which is why at Applause now, we are able to work with a variety of talent, a variety of directors, variety of writers, different people. And as long as we give each one their space to do what they have to do, we are able to create a lot more variety and let different people do different things. So when Hasmukh is being made, Hasmukh is in a totally different space. Right? When Criminal Justice Behind Closed Doors is being made, it's in a totally different space. Scam is different. Hostages is different. Andekhi, I don't know whether you saw that. It's a terrific show. And then we did Avrodh, which is complete patriotic and nationalist. All of that. So I mean, in each of these are different expressions of storytelling and different expressions of creativity. And I think what we try and do, I've always tried to do that, is that whatever we are doing, let's do it really well, right? So, if there's this line which says that if you're going to make a dumb comedy, then make sure you make a really dumb comedy. Then you shouldn't suddenly get intellectual about it. Making a dumb comedy, you must make a dumb comedy. If you're making a blood and gore action thriller, then you should make a blood and gore action thriller. You can't suddenly stop and say, yeah, but let's pull back. You shouldn't then, right? And in the other hand, if you're doing something quite, thoughtful, then you should do something thoughtful. So I think that's what I have always sort of done, which is, I've worked with all types of people, and I encourage this kind of, any kind of thinking and trying to do it well. What really bothers me is that you have a great idea and then you execute it badly, and then you blame audiences or you blame circumstances or you're ahead of your time. Those are really sad. I mean, if something doesn't work, it didn't work for a reason. It was probably badly made.
Can we unmute Rohan Bhaumik, please? Hey, Rohan, go for it.
Hi. Thank you, Smriti, and thank you, Samir sir, for having me here. It was a wonderful session. So my question to you is, Samir sir, is that in your life as a tastemaker, what is that has always kept you driven, every Monday? What has that always been the thing that has made you wake up from your bed and go to work, right? And what are the skills that you've always kept close to your heart in the life of your journey?
No, I wake up every morning, not just Monday. I wake up every morning. I'm quite excited. Actually, I enjoy what I'm doing. So I quite like that. I like what I'm doing. So I don't count this as work. I think this is, I've been fortunate enough to have this long extended vacation. I find holidays to be work. That a lot more planning and, what are we going to do and what's the itinerary and which museums are you going to see, that's a little more stressful. So I like coming to work. I like meeting people. I like to meet all these things. I'm always interested in telling new stories. So that's what keeps it exciting. The good part about our business is that storytelling itself, is that you're reinventing and inventing and creating new things every day. So a lot of other companies, a lot of other work do not have that, right? So if you're suppose you're in the business of making steel, the business defines what you do and you don't really have an opportunity to do new things. But I've often found that people from other industries are wonderful artists in their own right. They sing well, they write well, they do such amazing things. So I think what goes for me is that, I am really drawn to storytelling. I really want to do that. I want to keep doing that. So it excites me each time. And I am satisfied with small joys. So, when something big and spectacular happens, of course, it's good. But I'm happy for all the small victories. I think that all those small wins, the rotating the strike, taking the singles, not getting out, very important, keeping adding runs on the scoreboard, that kind of thing is really important. And then, of course, as has to be, the ball will stray, you will get a loose ball, and then you must hit it for a 6. And if you do that well enough in your life, then you have a pretty nice sort of, lots of runs, lots of dramatic shots, some exciting moments, some matches won, some matches lost. But yeah, that's pretty much, ball by ball, stay in the moment.
Thank you. Okay, Samir, I'm taking the last 2 questions. I know you're a busy man and you've already given us 1.5 hours, so we're not going to take more of your time. But can we quickly unmute Nandita Gangwal, please?
Hello.
Hi, Nandita.
Hi. Thank you so much, MAMI, Smriti, Samir sir, for having me as part of the session. This is my first live MAMI session, frankly, and it was really an eye-opener for me because I've been wanting to join in even through YouTube or here and be part of this, and have, because of work, never been able to. And because I've been trying to figure my change in the career itself. I'm working as a grip currently, and keep looking out for options otherwise. So that's one thing. It's just a generic question which I just wanted to ask right now. It was, you discussed about how daily soaps became a big thing, and gradually I've just in the OTT platform, do you see a space for weekly, like, there everything comes as a web series or episodics, everything is launched together, and the audience also has this habit of watching most of it together or as they choose. Is there a space you see for shows to actually not come all together and, like, have one episode and then a gap, another episode?
They do that. I mean, there are some, especially in the non-fiction space, there are, like if you take Hassan Minhaj, I think he puts out an episode once a week. And I think Letterman was doing it once a week or once a fortnight, my next guess.
WandaVision, The Boys, Hotstar does it very often. They did it with Run. They're doing it with the BP-inducing Woody Allen documentary right now.
Right. So, I mean, it happens, but I think what happened with the binge and dropping everything together is because it's something new, right? Because if you remember the show 24, all of us would have got the DVDs of 24 and then spent the whole weekend trying to watch it and finish all 24 episodes, which is like if you can do it on the weekend, it's quite an achievement, because you get the pizza and you get organized and you watch the whole damn thing and it has a way of ending and breaks into 4 frames and all that, and then the next episode starts. It's so exciting. So basically the streaming world is that 24 experience that's happening all at once, and it's great because if you consume that content so quickly, then you want more, and then you sort of sample other things. So yeah, I'm sure they'll do, like, I think Designated Survivor for the longest time used to come once a week, right? On Netflix, because it was being shared by the broadcaster. So they showed it in the US and then the rest of the world saw it. So it came. But I think the audience has moved to this thing about, if you're showing me something, show it all. Show it to me. So I don't know. And it's also risky. See, the whole weekly business is that you got to wait. And who knows what may happen next week. I might fall out of love. So better to be done with it.
Thank you, Nandita. Thank you so much. I'm now going to, there are 3 similar kind of questions that we got from Suhas Nair, Amol Chaudhary, and Rahul Modi. So I'm just very quickly going to ask Suhas to be unmuted. Suhas, if you can ask your full question, the one that you submitted. That is the reason why I've combined these 3. And I hope Amol, Rahul, you get your answers as well. Go for it.
Yeah. Hello, sir. So my question is, how do you see the Indian audiences for their taste and appetite in the OTT audience? For number 1, non-fiction content, web shows, and number 2, animated series and movies.
Honestly, there's no such thing as an OTT audience. OTT just happens to be one more form of technology now that is reaching the same audience. So the same, 800 million people that are watching TV, a subset of them have got smart devices and data and are consuming stuff on OTT. It's the same people, actually. Also, there's this too much thing about demographics, older people, younger people, rural and urban. I don't think all that is so much. It's just taste. There are a whole bunch of taste clusters, So like, I like House of Cards, you like House of Cards, my son likes House of Cards. So we are like pretty different people, right? So if you put ourselves into a single demographic, we won't even fit, from different places, but we do watch it. So in the same way, we watch different content. So I think in that sense, a lot of, like, in the space of reality and non-fiction and that kind of content, I think the platforms are doing it as well. It's the medium that defines some of these things. Like, there are some shows that work well on TV in a particular manner. It comes in a sequence, it plays out week on week. There are winners, and then you go on to the next thing. So that's how TV viewing is a habit. Whereas when you come onto the streaming platform, you are habituated to seeing a lot of episodes at one go. So it's actually habits. It's not content. So like, for example, my mother, she watches her daily soaps on the broadcasters, whether Star or Colors, and then comes to watch Criminal Justice on Hotstar, right? And it's actually different universes. She waits every day diligently to watch one episode of Anupama. Every day. She waits, and she's peaceful, and she's got no problem with that. She's not suddenly saying, why can't they show me all the eps together? She hasn't cracked that you can not watch it for a month and then catch up with all episodes together. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to follow that rhythm for that, and she wants to follow this rhythm for this. So I think it's a question of rhythm and behavior. So yeah, I mean, they'll watch non-fiction. There's nothing so different. There are so many documentaries that get made. There are so many new shows getting made. I think that'll happen. Platforms will do it. It's the mechanics of how it's done. TV also is supported by advertising. So a lot of the big reality shows get a lot of ad support. Platform is subscription supported, and then they've got to mount these big shows and put it up. So I mean, like, why shouldn't KBC come onto Sony Live only or onto Netflix only? Could do. Why not? They should do it, right? If they want to, they can do it. I mean, it'll become an economic decision, not necessarily a programming decision.
Okay, one last question. I'm greedy. Amol Chaudhary, can we unmute Amol, please? Amol, please, जो पूछा है वो पूछ लेना. कोई नहीं पूछ रहा जो.
Yeah, पूछ लेंगे.
Go for it. Can we unmute Amol, please? Go for it, Amol.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Smriti. Thanks, Samir. I had two questions. First, Jaideep has already asked this one. I got that answer. Another one was, what is the future of entertainment industry? Means how things are there. Means audience is there. Content creator are creating contents. But what is the future? Means whether it will go for OTT platform completely or theater, or means what will be the future?
Well, that's a little bit of crystal ball prediction. But again, they say that, if you can look 2 years ahead, then that's good to go, because in the long term, we'll all be dead. But just going in these smaller batches, obviously, OTTs are going to spread because data is cheap and we've got devices. So we've got 900 million smart devices in this country. So fair to say that we want all 900 million people to consume streaming content. Will that adversely affect TV? In a way it will, but most broadcasters have become OTT players themselves. So in a sense, it's just a shift. What happens with theaters? They were all shut during the lockdown, but now once vaccines are out and once things sort of normalize, it should open and bounce back. Will people go back to theaters? I think they will. I think they should. I don't think it is, just because you're getting it in the house doesn't mean you'll never go out. By that logic, we should not go out for anything. We should not go out to restaurants. We should not go out shopping. Everything is there, right? Amazon will give you everything in the house. You should not move from your sofa. But that's not true. You will move. You will go out. You want to go out on a date. You want to go out with friends. You want to do stuff. You don't want to sit down with your family and do everything together. And that, it's all about loving your family. The nice thing to say, but you don't want to do that all the time, right? So I think these kind of things will continue to exist and they will continue to grow. From the entertainment industry point of view, the biggest advantage of the streamer is the streamer has introduced giant libraries. With TV, what used to happen is you saw it, it went away. You saw it, it went away. So it was not really like a tonight at 9 gone. Now it's all there and it's there. You can come back to it. You can come back. Somebody can tell you, hey, listen, I saw this great show. You can go and see it. You can go and find it and watch it again. You can watch it 3 years later, 5 years later. You can catch up seasons. I think these are really amazing things that technology has brought us. All this technology about resume, watching, you may also like, you may want to do this, skip episode, all of that. These things you couldn't do on TV, right? You couldn't do it on film. So, and these are big global companies, which means they're taking our stories now globally. So it's not to say that we are making a story for the whole world, but the whole world can potentially see it, which means that what the pandemic has done, in a sense, it locked you up in your house, but it actually exposed you to the world, right? And everyone in the world, while locked up in the pandemic, saw everything else in the world, right? And everywhere, everyone has done that. And now it's sort of opened it up for all of us. So I think it's a great time. I mean, if you are a creator or if you are looking to sort of tell stories, then there can't be any better time because you've got the rich platforms here, you've got the big broadcasters here, you've got the technology here, you've got the devices here, you've got an audience here, hungry and fully clued in and saying, tell me more. And sure, there will be some regulation and some censorship. And I mean, those kind of things keep coming. But beyond that, I mean, you're talking about a huge sort of latent need and appetite. I mean, what are we making? We're making like 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 series a year. I think the market should do 1,000 series a year. And it'll still be less because you're talking about Hindi, you're talking about all the other languages, you're talking about all the genres. I mean, too much fun.
Samir, let's hope you keep having fun and we keep having fun because you're having fun. I don't think one session is enough with you. I think I wanted to cover a lot more, but we'll do this again with you. I hope you can make the time. I want to thank you for giving us this much time. Thank you for sharing so much. And I want to thank everyone for plugging in. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us, and keep watching DialMForFilms.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thanks, Smriti. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.